Square Enix has been struggling. We have seen them push a massive focus on NFT gaming. Their revenue was down in 2022, but 2023 holds a lot for them still, like Final Fantasy 16. It is going to be a massive release I personally am extremely excited for, but it looks like they are a bit worried since allegedly behind the scenes they are slightly panicking about pre-order numbers. I have a few different things that I want to show off, but before we get into the topic, if you enjoy the content that I create, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. Follow me on social media so that you can see when my content is posted. And of course, if you do really enjoy the videos and the live streams that I create, please consider becoming a Dark Titan via Patreon or a supporter via YouTube memberships. So starting with this Push Square article, it says Square Enix allegedly slightly panicking about Final Fantasy 16 PS5 pre-orders. We've played quite a lot of Final Fantasy 16 now at various preview events, and as we've described it in the past few write-ups, we believe it is going to end up a bona fide Game of the Year contender. However, there are the slightest rumbles beginning to emerge that Square is worried about the release's pre-order numbers, despite an aggressive marketing campaign which has seen Yoshida jetted around the world and a lot of gameplay footage shared with fans. Now, I do have to say, leading up to the release of Final Fantasy 16, I have seen this game be promoted very differently than past games, right? They have been very aggressive with marketing. At the, game showcase events, they've showed a ton of footage. They've posted it to social media, whether it is Twitter or YouTube. They've had a lot of exclusive gameplay and game clips go up on different platforms to try to draw people in. They have been extremely aggressive, and we don't know the exact budget for this game, and we don't know the marketing budget, but I would assume it's got to be very high up there. And usually with larger marketing campaigns means larger sales, because you're getting your product into the line of sight of more consumers. More people are able to, pay attention to what's going on, and when they see more, they get more excited. But with this game, and from what we're hearing about Square Enix's worries, that doesn't seem to be the case. Now, I always expected Final Fantasy 16 to be a Game of the Year contender. I don't necessarily think it is going to win, just for the simple fact that Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom released this year, and Zelda will almost always beat out a game like Final Fantasy. Even if I personally think a Final Fantasy should win, it will, of course, win RPG of the Year. I would be very confident in saying that. But Final Fantasy 16 is a major launch for them. It is a game we have all been waiting many years for, a game that I am personally very excited for, and I do think that it is going to sell fantastically. But hearing that they are worried about it is honestly a little bit worrying to me as a consumer. It says, writing as part of a Patreon post, a journalist teased a little insight into what he's been hearing behind the scenes. I heard recently that Square Enix is panicking over the 16 pre-order numbers, which we are tracking behind Final Fantasy 15, even accounting for the lesser number of launching platforms. Now, when Final Fantasy 15 launched, it was the largest release for Square Enix for a Final Fantasy title, so you would think that they would be aiming, of course, to go above and beyond those numbers, right? They're not launching new games thinking it's going to do a little bit worse than the last one, but that's okay. But sometimes numbers can surprise us at launch. Maybe this will actually beat their expectations, but it does sound like a lot of sources at this point are very confident in saying it's probably not going to hit the 15 numbers, and they are a little bit worried. And of course, it's not surprising to see their panic, because Square Enix's financial results showed a decline in sales in 2022. And of course, this could be for a multitude of reasons, one being that they didn't release a lot of newer content last year that was as big as something like Final Fantasy 16, but also people are getting sick and tired of pre-ordering games. I do think that that is a major reason why Final Fantasy 16 is not, pre-ordering all that well. People are sick and tired of AAA games being hyped up, being released, and being complete and utter failures. I've had to talk about a lot of games that have released in just 2023 alone that have been buggy and broken. I've had to talk about Forspoken, Wild Hearts. I've had to, discuss things like the Golem game, Redfall. I mean, the list goes on, and unfortunately, even myself as a consumer am pretty worried about the current state of AAA releases. Now, I do end up pre-ordering most of these games because I'm live streaming them, right? I'm going to be live streaming Final Fantasy 16 launch weekend for you guys so that you can see all of my, initial thoughts, my full playthrough. I am excited about it. But if I was a normal consumer, I would not be pre-ordering games. I would be waiting until the very last minute in order to either pre-order them or just buy them in general. I feel like a lot of AAA games nowadays do not warrant a $60 to $70 price tag. Look at something like Golem. That game was a $20 game at best. It looked awful. It did not play the best. The only thing it had going for it was the fact that it was Lord of the Rings, and even that wasn't enough to bump up the score. I gave it like a 3 out of 10, and even that was being generous. But when it comes to something like Final Fantasy 16, our expectations are pretty high, but also, it could end up just being another game that releases this year that is broken. I have my fingers crossed, and I really hope that doesn't happen. But here's a thread about it saying PlayStation exclusivity is killing Square Enix after the lackluster sales of Forspoken and the declining revenue/profit of the last 2 years. Final Fantasy 16 pre-orders are low and unimpressive. This is also very important to point out that yes, these games are PlayStation exclusives, and we have seen a decline in, PlayStation exclusivity, especially with Square Enix, specifically Forspoken. Now, I think that Forspoken was a multitude of reasons. First of all, it was a new IP. Second of all, it just seemed like a mess, even from the teasers and trailers that we got leading up to launch. And then, of course, launch came. We saw the cringeworthy dialogue, the awful characters, mediocre combat, and overall, it just was a hot mess of a game. But I do think that, yes, PlayStation exclusivity is also hurting these titles. If Forspoken was, not just on PlayStation, yeah, I think the sales would have been slightly higher, but I say that for most games. I do think that exclusivity does generally hurt titles. Like I mentioned, I am excited for Final Fantasy 16. I will be playing it launch weekend. I have a lot of hopes for it, and I don't want Square Enix to fail with this game. I want this title to be awesome. I want it to release in a great state. I want it to be as perfect as I am expecting it to be. But unfortunately, Square Enix has been struggling over the past few years, and now hearing that they are panicking about the PS5 pre-order numbers definitely has me and a lot of other people worried. But that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed this and of course found it important and informative, please make sure to give it a like, share it, and subscribe to the channel. And of course, if you didn't, make sure to give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I will talk to you all again in the next video really soon.